Welcome to another coding tutorial, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can get the outlines of your fonts using OpenType.js. In a different video, I've gone over the text-to-points function that returns an array of points outlining the text within a p5 font class. While this function is great and it allows us to do a lot of interesting typography sketches, there are some limitations. The main one is that it returns an array of points that outlining the entire text, but it doesn't actually tell us when each letter starts and when it ends. And so to fix this specific problem, in this video, we'll be using a different library called OpenType.js. And in fact, p5.js internally uses OpenType.js, but in this tutorial, we'll be directly using this library to extract the text path data. We're going to start by uploading the font into our sketch. So we're going to come to this arrow here, click the plus sign, and then create folder. I'm going to call my folder fonts. And then you're going to click this arrow here and then upload file. And this is where you're going to drag and drop your font file in here. Once your font is downloaded, you need to come to index.html file. So because we're using the OpenType.js, which is a separate library, we need to also integrate it into our program. So to do that, you just need to copy and paste the source file for this specific library. And I will put this link down below so you can integrate it into your program. Alright, so once this is done, you need to go back to sketch.js. The way that we preload our font is a little bit different than how we usually do it. We cannot actually use the preload function anymore. So what we're going to do is that first, we're going to declare a variable called font. And then inside the setup function, we're going to type in OpenType, which is the name of the library, right? And then .load, we're going to put in a quotation mark here, and inside the quotation mark is going to be where our font file is. So our font file, in my case, it's in the folder called fonts, and my file name is called lemonmilk-regular.otf. So that's what I'm going to put in here. So fonts /lemon milk-regular.otf, and then you're going to put in a comma, and then function, and then another parentheses. All right, and then we're gonna put in a curly bracket, and then we need also a semicolon here. Inside the function here, we're going to put ERR and F. And then inside the curly bracket, we're gonna write a conditional statement. So if ERR, then console log, or this is the same thing as to print ERR. So ERR is shortened for error. So if there is any error, then please print out what the error is. But else, if there is no error, then set our font variable here to F. So this is a little bit different than how we usually preload the font, but this is how we do it with the OpenType.js library. Similar to how we use text to points, this is going to be where we're going to get the path to the text data that we want. So first, let's declare a new variable called message, MSG, and then let's the message be hello with an exclamation point. Then we also want to set a new variable called font path. And then we want to set font path to font, which is our font here, dot get path. So this is the function within the font class that allows us to get the path. And then inside the parentheses, it takes a total of 4 arguments. This first one is the string of text that we want to write. So MSG, right, which is the string of the word hello. And then it's going to be the X and Y coordinates of the bottom left corner of the text bounding box. So this is very similar to the text to points function. I'm going to put in 0,0 first, and then we can translate it later in the draw function. And then the fourth one is going to be the size. And then let's also declare this. How about 200? All right. Now let's click run just to make sure that there's no error, and there's none. How about now let's just print what the font path returns. Okay, so it returns a bunch of things, right? But the most important things, or the ones that we actually are going to pay attention to, is this first one, commands. And inside commands is an array of the length 63, right? And there are objects in here. And each of the objects has what? It has type and x and y. And as you might guess, x and y are the x and y coordinates, right? But you see the types are a little bit different. There's M, there's L. Let's see if there's other ones. These are all L's. There's a Z. There's an L. Okay, and then there's another M. Let's see if there's other ones too. Z, L, M, C. There's a C. There's a C here. So the different types that you just saw, the M, the L, the C, the Z, and you didn't see Q, but they're actually the fifth one, which is Q, are the path commands. To understand what are these path commands, you need to quickly understand what SVG or Scalable Vector Graphics is as an image format. So unlike JPEG or PNG, which are the image formats that we might be more familiar with, because this is where images are made up of rows and columns of color pixels, which is how we usually display things on our screen. With SVG, images are made out of points that are connected together by a specific command. So let's start with M, or move to. This is when you move your mouse or you move your pen or whatever it is to a specific location, to a specific coordinate. And then L, or align to, is a command where you connect the previous point to the given coordinate with a line. C, or curve to, is when you draw a Bezier curve with 2 control points and 1 anchor point. Q, or quad to, is when you draw a quadratic Bezier curve with 1 control point and 1 anchor point. And then Z, there's no coordinate associated with this command. This command means close, and so this is where you know that the path to that specific letter ends. So as you saw with the print function before, there are multiple M's and there are multiple Z's because we have the word hello. So each letter has its own M commands and then its own Z commands. And then what's in between is the commands that connects each of the points together, whether it be a line or a Bezier curve. I'm going to declare a new array. I'm going to call it points. And then underneath the draw functions, I'm going to set points to be equal to font path dot commands, right? Let's print points again just to see what's in here. So it's a bunch of objects, right? And then within here, there's the type and there is X and Y coordinates. But for different types, for L, you also see 2 X and Y coordinates. But if, let's say it's a different type, let's see. If it's a C, then you see there are 3 sets of X and Y coordinates. So it depends on the type itself. All right. So now once we have this, I'm going to use a for loop. And then this for loop is going to go through all of the objects in the point array, right? And now I'm going to use a conditional statement. But before that, let me also declare a new variable called command. And the command is going to be equals to points of I dot type, right? I want to get this type here, right? So this is me extracting each of the object, and then I want to get the type of that object. And then I'm going to write a conditional statement. So if command is equals to M, right? Do something. Then I'm going to do the same thing with else if command equals to L. And then let me copy and paste this 3 more times for the rest of the command. So we have M, L, we have C, we have Q, and then we have Z. And then like I said before, the M command is when you start drawing the shape, right? So what you want is you want to put in begin shape. And then we're going to draw the vertex, right? And the vertex, then we're going to extract the points of I.x and points of I.y, right? So that's if it has the type command of M. For L, we just want 2 points, right? Actually, just 1 point. For C, we want to draw a Bezier curve, right? Using the Bezier vertex function. So within the command C, like we saw before, there are 3 sets of x and y coordinates. So with Bezier vertex, we're going to put in a total of 6 arguments. So we're going to have points of I dot x1, y1, x2, y2, and then just x and y. And then for the q, we're going to use a function called quadratic vertex, which takes in a total of 2 sets of x and y coordinates, so 4 points. So I'm going to just copy this. But it is going to be x1, y1, and just x and y. And then for z, like I said before, there are no x and y coordinates. We just need to put in the function in shape to finish the shape of each of the letter. All right, I hope this works. Okay, I think it works. But because it's all the way up top, we need to translate it. How about we translate it slightly to the right and then 200 down. Okay, and then we also want to increase the width. Let's do 800. Okay. But it seems like the beginning and the ending of the letter doesn't close. So let's try, maybe we just need the word close. All right. And then what if we just put in no fill? Okay. We can do a lot already with what we have, where now we have a clean outline of each of the letter and they're all separated. But I want to show you a different library called g.js that will allow us to resample the path. And to resample means to distribute points along the shape or along the path. If you have seen the text to points function video, you would already know that within that function in the last argument, you can actually resample the path using the sample factor argument. But within OpenType.js, you are not able to do that, so we need to add in this g.js library to help us do this task. First, you need to go to index.html file and then add this library. I'm going to put it before the OpenType script line here. So we have this for the g.js library, and then we have this other one for the OpenType.js library. All right, and now let's go back to sketch.js. We're going to declare a new variable called path. And then underneath this font path here, we're going to set path to a new g.path. And then the argument that we're going to put in, it's going to be the font path.commands. All right, so let's quickly print. Let's print font path, and then we're gonna print path just to see what's the difference. Let's delete this part. All right, so seems very similar, right? Within the commands, the total number of objects in the array is 63, and then for here it's also 63. But if you look at the other parts here, the type of functions are all different. So this is for from the OpenType.js, and then this one is from the g.js. There are more functions, and this is the function that we're going to use called resample by length, right? It's a function, so we can use both resample by amount or resample by length, but let's do resample by length for now. So I'm going to delete this. We're going to set path to be equals to g.resample by length, and then inside this we're going to put in the path, and then the other argument is going to be the number of pixels that we want between each of the points. So I'm going to put in 10 pixels. So let's just print path. So before there were 63 objects, right, in this commands array. Now there's 394. So the smaller the number you put in here, the larger the number of objects inside the arrays, right? Because there are more points, because now the distance between each of the points are smaller. All right. Okay, I'm gonna put it back to 10. Now inside the draw functions, we will comment this whole thing out. Oh, one more thing that I want to show you is if you look here, actually let's play again. Let's print path. Alright, so inside the commands, now it's M and L. So the points, the type commands now are just M, L, and Z. So there is no C type or Q type anymore within this path. So it just tells us when the letter begins and when the letter ends, and then we just draw lines in between each of these. So let's just try to draw ellipses on the points here. So let's use a for loop that goes through I equals to 0, I less than the path dot commands dot length I plus plus, then ellipse path dot command of I dot x, path dot command of I dot y, and then let's do the size of 10. Okay. Commands. Alright, so now we have a bunch of ellipses that outlines our text, right? And it gives us an error because there are some of the objects, for example the Z ones, right? Actually just the Z ones that have no coordinates, so it doesn't know which points to draw. And before I go to the next part, so if I were to increase this to 20, now you see that the points are far apart together, right? And same things for the other way around. So the last thing that I want to show you is that right now we have one array that contain all the points for all the letters here. But I want to convert from this 1D array to a 2D array so that we can actually control each of the letter by itself. Actually, not just each of the letter. For example, if the letter O has 2 outlines, so we're going to separate those into 2 arrays. Inside the setup here, I'm going to use a for loop, and this for loop is going to go through all the objects, right? So path dot commands dot length and I plus plus. We're going to look at the type of the commands inside each of the objects. We're going to create an inner array, the 1D array inside the 2D array, when the type of that object is an M. We're going to ignore the ones that are the Z type because it doesn't have an X and Y coordinates. When the type is either M or L, then we're going to push the X and Y coordinates inside the inner array that we just created. So first, let's just do if path.commands of I.type equals to M. Then, okay, we also need to, we already have this points array. Then we're gonna do points.push, right? And then we're gonna push an inner array in here. And then we're gonna have another if statement. So if path.commands of I.type is not equals to Z. We want to ignore the Z, right? Because it doesn't have X and Y coordinates. Then we want to say points array, and with what index? Points.length minus 1, right? So whatever the length of the points is at the time, we want to put it in the very last one. And then we're gonna push, and what are we gonna push? We're gonna push X and Y coordinates, and I'm gonna put in create vector. And vector is a class that contains 2 points, right? So create vector is a method within the vector class that allows us to create a new vector object. So we're going to put in path.commands of I.x and then path.commands of I.y. All right, let's just click run to make sure there's no error. Okay. No error. And then how about I'm going to comment this part out for now. And then inside here, let's print points. All right, so now the word hello, right? It has how many? 8, right? H, E, L, L, O, and then O has two, like the outer one and the inner one, and then exclamation point and the O underneath the exclamation point. So there are a total of 8, which is correct. All right, and then now, instead of just drawing this out like this, we're gonna use a nested for loop. So for let I equals to 0, I less than points.length I plus plus, and then we want another loop, let j equals to 0, j less than points of I, right, dot length, then j plus plus. So now it's each of the letter, right? And we want to draw an ellipse at points of I and j dot x, right? And then points of I and j dot y, and then let's do the size of 10. You can't see that it's any different. Let me actually change this to 10. Okay, to see that it's actually different, I'm gonna change the colors of each of these. So come here, so we're gonna put a function fill, and actually why don't I just give it the same color? So let's do, how about yellow, but I'm gonna give a different transparency. How about I times 50? All right, so you see that each of the letters are now separated. So in this video, not only that you can see how we can use OpenType.js to get a clean outline of each of the letter, but now you can use g.js to resample your points and then also convert from 1D to 2D arrays so that you can manipulate each of the letter itself. There's so much that you can do with this knowledge now, and I'm going to do a few tutorials in the future, and if you have a suggestion, please be sure to comment below. Give this one a try.